It's hard to imagine what the alchemist in the 14th century were experiencing. Just a... So, I like to think of it all as poetry and art, and also I think it's a responsibility to try to tell somebody what to do, to take away their ability to make their own choices and to learn. And so for their own, what they want. And so I am very hesitant almost always to tell somebody this is what you should do, or this is the answer. More, I like to kind of stand alongside someone and just, we're just doing poetry, figuring things out, and you've got your thing, and I can really listen to you and appreciate your thing, and I've got my thing, and maybe you'll be interested, maybe you won't. That's cool. And so like one of my favorite forms of poetry in this light, in this realm that we were just talking about, is I really like Tarot, not as an answer for anyone, including myself, but more of just like as a contemplative form of study, because there's a lot of symbols they slap into those things. And so, it's a fun way to do a little bit of a contemplation style meditation, or a focused meditation on something when, maybe my mind is a little too busy, and I don't, mindfulness meditation is not doing it that day. So I kind of like some of those things, or like the memory aids where, you've got these big kind of schematics that are very famous in alchemy and things like that, and you kind of just look at it and you try to kind of put everything in its place. I like those kinds of things. Thank you so much for suggesting Tarot. That's what I'll be doing later today. I do like to follow your lead. I'm deeply immersed in
Follow your lead, Dr. Jordan.
Okay. That one, okay, that's an exception. I am the Letterkenny event. And you converted to... Well, okay, that's true. You're a Letterkenny. Yeah, Letterkenny. Question: When you look at Tarot decks, and I won't talk about it too much longer if this is going to make everybody uncomfortable and glaze over, but when you look at Tarot decks, do you have a particular deck you're fond of? I mean, the Rider-Waite deck is the famous one. What I've always found is that I love the Toss deck the most, but I get easier, simpler answers from Rider-Waite. Yeah, I found that Crowley deck to be a little creepy. I know that deck. Yeah, he told Lady Frida Harris exactly what to draw, and she did. There's this group, they were called Builders of the 80-Ton. I think I'm saying it correctly, I'm not positive. In any case, it's Paul Foster Case. He might have been in the Golden Dawn, I'm not sure, but what he did with the Rider-Waite deck is he added color in a particular way that he felt the correspondences worked better for, and and then also it's tied to the Hebrew alphabet, and there are some really beautiful poems that he wrote in this book called the Book of Tokens, and it's one of my favorite books of symbols. I don't know if you've ever seen the Book of Tokens, Tokens, but if you get the full color copy, a hardcover copy, full color, I think you would find that it ends up as like one of your favorite books too. Yeah, that sounds great. The Book of Tokens. You can even find, if you really wanted to see what the writing is all about, you can even find, there's a whole bunch of renegade online. I just don't know if they're in color. I think you can find it on the Internet Archive. Hey, I'm a real book guy. A copy. Yeah. Jung's Real Red Book, for example, and that was very expensive. Yeah, that's a good one. Do all of you know the Red Book by Jung? I'm trying to crack this conversation back open to the group. No, I may be the only other person here interested in this stuff. Well, I mean, no, because Austin just popped up. I know he's going to say he knows it. Also, this is the book where Jung kind of induced his own psychosis. Maybe. Well, he went through a
I thought it was an origin for The Hobbit. There was something along that line where J.R. Tolkien took inspiration from it, or backwards.
Well, it wasn't published until recently, yes?
Oh, I keep thinking of the other.
Maybe there was an
There
earlier
was a
edition.
historic red book.
Maybe there was an earlier edition of it.
He viewed it as a 14-year active imagination, and if the other author I'm reading about him right now is correct, his whole point was to literally go into the underworld and to touch and be taught by these kind of luminous beings. So he went to hell on purpose. It almost went to hell.
It's really interesting. I read that Cambridge short guide on him, and he was a senior-ranking medical leader at quite a young age. Like, he received large promotions, and he excelled in his role because he'd seen people like making very strange arrangements. The psychiatrists, or whatever they were called at the time, physicians for mental health. Yeah, I don't know Swiss German, but the other clinicians would see these patients, they'd be making weird hand symbols, and they're like, wow, crazy patients. And you would talk to them and realize, oh, for 20 years they worked as a weaver. So, Dr. James, that's good advice for promotion in the mental health sciences. Like, realize what patients are up to. And just observe it. Because a lot of people are spaced out and not paying attention to the clients. But that was such a cool story, and it adds another context to him. He was a great healthcare leader at a young age, and that really affects, I guess, the trajectory of his life and how he became a celebrity.
So, Mark, do you know the book Kind of Fault by Kitover, talking about a lot about the Red Book? Something that ring a bell? It's really.
You say how to fall or how to talk?
Catafalque. Catafalque. Catafalque, I believe is the title. The catafalque is the funeral pyre here that a king would be burned upon. And what Peter Kingsley is saying is that Western civilization, that's all that's left. It's burnt over funeral platform to burn people on. And kings, that is. And then the whole book is mainly about, also about those a lot of sophisticated, but it's mainly about the Red Book and what Jung was doing and how everybody around him kept trying to dress him up and make it look like he wasn't intentionally, with his active imagination and experiment, almost broken him mad. The conclusion is that you have to literally be willing to go into the underworld to directly face these huge forces that in the Western world that don't even exist. And that is the only true mental health therapy. So Jung spent 14 years doing his active imagination experiment, and you're absolutely right that it almost drove him completely mad, almost broke his mind.
Quickly. We got Hero on stage. Good morning, Hero. It was great to.
Good morning, Hero. Huge numbers don't exist.
I want to know more about this.
Arigato.
I keep looking at in my mind, it brings me back to the Red Book of last March. Then there was another one, Red Book of Hergest. Red Book of Hergest.
I just look at the pictures in the Red Book sometimes and I'm just astonished at the painting and drawing skill that Jung himself personally had, in addition to all these other amazing things. House.
He's really spectacular. I was just about to say, Dr. James, if you ever hear of a really cool event happening at one of the SoCal Carl Jung societies, or if you hear of any Jungian conferences in the area of the Western United States, or academia today? Because it's still around. It's not huge.
There is the Young Institute in San Francisco. You can study to become an analyst. That's what they call them in Jungian. You become a Jungian analyst, and part of what that entails is I believe you have a doctorate in psychology, and then what you do is it's kind of like a postgraduate, postdoctoral kind of thing where you spend a number of years both studying academics and your own kind of self-exploration, but I believe it includes like a 5-day a week visit to your own analyst, and there's also a Jungian analyst, and it takes some time, and that's what they do. But it's kind of interesting. I'll just say this really briefly. There was a point along the way, like midway through getting my doctorate, that I got interested in Jung as a potential possibility, and what I did during that time was I found myself a Jungian analyst and started going to them for my own therapy or my own analysis, and then I found myself a Jungian supervisor who was a Jungian analyst to oversee my clients for a year with me, and it was a really interesting time. In the end, I opted to go kind of a more like evidence-based route, more integrative medicine route, but I really enjoyed that year of training. I mean, it was just something very beautiful about a lot of the symbols and all of that, the alchemy.
I'm interested in the band because, as I mentioned, it's not particularly mainstream academia, but there's still folks in academy that are writing and peer-reviewing things that are deeply influenced by it, or are members of the society. There's a lot of Carl Jung societies. They're in almost every major city. It's interesting. I guess I was told there that for folks in the arts, it's an exceptionally sage idea to undergo Jungian analysis, and I could really see that.
And this is not the Red Book of like 1920s.
I think the Red Book came out in the 20s, didn't he? He was alive in the 20s. He would have, I think.
I'm fairly confident he borrowed from. So Tolkien borrowed from the Red Book. And then as well, that was referencing the Red Book of West March, which was a 1300s book. So the Red Book itself is what do you call that? An influence.
So I didn't know
What do I mean by like that?
a book of a book. So it wasn't printed originally, right? I mean, how did Tolkien? I'm listening to Tolkien being read to me every night now as I fall asleep. So I find this very interesting. I didn't know they knew each other. That adds just a huge dimension.
I gotta find it. I know that there's a podcast that referenced it once. So Tolkien borrows from the Red Book of West March, which is like from the 1300s. And for some reason I thought Ian was doing a Red Book around the same time. What is doing this Red Book?
There's so much interesting stuff in the corpus of Jung, like anima and animus, and these mystical perspectives of the various components of the archetypes of our life, like the mask, the anima, the animus, this various stuff. It's really, really cool. And something cool, I downloaded Manda's Symbols on audiobook, and I highly recommend it for folks who are auditory learners. I think I recommend it more than the print edition. It's really, really cool. I'm enjoying it.
Hey, Dr. Slafter, I found a little blurb here. So, beginning in the years leading up to the Great War, both C.G. Jung and J.R. Tolkien independently began to undergo profound imaginal experiences. Jung recorded these fantasies from larger manuscripts that he named Liber Novus, referred to as simply the Red Book, and for Tolkien, the imaginal journey revealed to him the world of Middle-earth, whose stories and myths eventually led to the writing of Lord of the Rings, a book he named within its own imaginal history, the Red Book of West March. This presentation explores the many synchronistic parallels between Jung and Tolkien's Red Book, the style and content of the works of art, the narrative descriptions. Okay, so this is a plug for a book about the books.
But I'm not hearing that they knew each other.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not true. I'm only just reading a blurb of something I found that mentioned them both in the same.
And Carl Jung ran and
Austin. Okay, let everybody speak once before you come back in for another round.
oh, so
And
sorry,
one time
I'm so sorry.
No, we don't need it. We don't need it. No, see? Just let everybody speak once, and then you come in the next round. That's the way. If no one else wants to speak, you can go, but I just want to make sure I'm going to be very, like, aggressive. Good, perfect day to learn. Social etiquette.
He ran in a lot of celebrity
Couldn't do it.
circles when he was like,
That's okay.
he was
Couldn't do it. I'm at it for words.
It's my birthday.
You couldn't do it. It's okay, fine. It was a poetic. You couldn't do it. What do you get for your birthday? I'm going to give you, for your birthday, we're going to give you some love. There you go. Happy birthday.
People can speak and listen figuratively, brother.
This is my stage, and so these are my rules. So if it doesn't work for you, you can go over to another room and play it that.
I think it was a free mythology, because Jung likes to go to, I'm less psychology literate, but taking a mythological story and then reflecting it against your own paradigm. And that was kind of the point of even J.R. Tolkien, was finding the mythology and then narrating it from it as a seed to see what he would kind of discover about himself as he was writing.
Good morning, Dr. Francine. Hi.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Are we changing the subject?
Here's what I would ask. If you want to change the subject, don't bring in an inflammatory topic right now because it's a really wonderful morning just floating in idea.
Dr. Francine, remember when we were talking about Carl Jung and Karma Club?
Austin, you remember when I said everybody gets to talk once? I love you, brother, but I'm putting you back down in the audience.
Yes, I remember about Carl Jung, and I actually studied quite a bit about Carl Jung when I was younger. but yes, he was pretty popular when I was in graduate school in the 60s and 70s.
Popular for what? Because when I'm thinking of Jung, I think of one concept.
Archetypes.
What's that?
Archetypes, that's what I think of.
Okay.
Individuation.
Lived amongst the Nazis.
Okay, well, I don't know that, but I do know that he I was going to say invented, but that's the wrong word. Perpetuated the theory of archetypes, and I wish I remembered now what that theory of archetypes consisted of, but I do know that that was his claim to fame, and he was in a race with Sigmund Freud to be the dominant theory of psychoanalysis.
Well, his was called analysis. You can be trained to be an analysis, just like you can get trained to become a psychoanalyst. Psychoanalysts, by way of Freud, are considered still to be somewhat niche, but still mainstream. And this is the thing that you would always see people laying on the couch in the old movies from the 50s and 60s. And then Jungian analysis has gone a bit out of vogue because Jungian theory is not really sort of an evidence-based form of psychology. However, there are plenty of people that do it, and in fact, I was at an LGBTQ plus training practicum where there were quite a few therapists who practice Jungian therapy because the whole thing with balancing opposites and reconciling opposites when someone is either carrying some shame or some internalized heterosexism or whatever the thing was they were carrying, doing art therapy and ways of kind of loving or bringing to light the shadow and these types of things were they found really helpful. To whatever degree that was an evidence-based form of therapy, I kind of felt like it was a really good experience to be introduced to people who were practicing Jungian therapy that year. That was my second year, and that's why I ended up seeking out a Jungian supervisor and getting into my own Jungian analysis the year following.
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
are you done, James?
Yeah, I am.
Just to be clear, Carl Jung was Sigmund Freud's anointed disciple.
That's right.
A torrid intellectual and psychological love affair that ended both because Jung was thinking that Freud's obsession with sex and his theories didn't pan out, and also Jung was interested in things involving the psyche and psychological impacts and synchronicities. And there's a famous case where they're arguing, and as one of them shouts, a piece of furniture in the room next to them splits in half. This has been written about. So they did go their separate ways. In many ways, Freud won and has dominated much of modern psychology. Parts of it, because he had a nephew, was named Edward Bernays, who was a genius at marketing. But Jung, obviously, is so interesting and so fascinating and brought so much of the inner dimensions back to us that huge interest has always remained in his work. And did you know Carl Jung wrote his medical dissertation on his cousin's case of multiple personality?
Wow. Yeah, Jung was a bit more of like a spiritual alchemist slash occultist slash Rosicrucian. He was spiritualist, but also, that's true. He definitely was about kind of the hidden.
You, come up here.
No, not that
like
one.
synchronicity. It's
very
almost like
dirty
saying,
one there.
it's almost like we don't have the measuring device enough to bring the thing into focus that connects things, which is kind of another way of saying this thing isn't falsifiable. But I think I love the poetry of it. That's where I was saying earlier that for me, a lot of this stuff, I won't state it as a fact. I will just say I really appreciate the poetry of it. It doesn't matter whether it's a fact to me.
It's a way of looking at consciousness. And we still don't have any way of looking at consciousness. We're still not.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's kind of one of the more beautiful, I think, attempts at looking at it, to be fair.
It's because of the archetypes and the personas. It's much more.
Dr. Francine Hardaway.
But bummer, Austin is gone now.
I know that is his choice, and we're not going to stay focused on that thing.
So for me,
Today was a more of a group dynamic than the Austin show, and I just want to keep it focused more.
So for me, the one concept is the collective unconscious.
Do you have any more thoughts about that?
Well, just the idea that there is some system, and because there have been, I'm not sure about how good this evidence is, but there have been case studies of, I think it was called the Hunger Winter, somewhere around World War II, maybe in it, in Northern Europe, maybe Netherlands, where there was a case study of, I forget what the sample size was, but several people reporting they all had dreams about starving. Now, obviously, if everyone's starving, it would also stand to reason that they're all having dreams about starving independently. I think there's some other case studies in there that might lend a little bit more of science and not move to this idea. And now it makes me wonder if our mammals have a real delusion.
Jordan, do you want to comment?
just that Jung in some ways was all about woo. And the whole concept of synchronicity, developed with Dr. Kessler, and Einstein played a role in it. Like for example, my friend Billy Sunshine mentioned the show Longmire in a conversation early yesterday. I never heard the name Longmire in my whole life. Later that night, I'm watching Letterkenny, and no, not Letterkenny, sorry, Grace and Frankie, and they mentioned Longmire a dozen times. Now, how could that happen? I mean, it did happen, and it probably doesn't mean anything at all. But when you've never heard a word and your closest friend mentions it, closest real-time friend, and then all of a sudden it's on a TV show and it's mentioned 12 times, you just go, fuck, there has to be more shit going on than appears to the reductionist eye.
One of the more beautiful, I think, attempts at looking at it, to be fair.
Yes, that's because of the archetypes and the personas.
I got myself this female, I like that.
How does one even, how can one ever arrive at an answer to whether something go all into the question about, it seems like it just comes back.
Say that again, James, you cut out.
Yeah, restate the question.
So, how could anyone possibly ever arrive at an answer as to whether something is, in fact, a coincidence or it was sort of always to be that way?
Well, we have math.
It's just a coincidence that 2 cubed is 8.
No, I mean, there are like statistical tests, like chi-squared. There are things for this, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Do you think 8 doesn't exist too? This is a different conversation.
I think 8 can exist, but it takes 2 times 2 to get 4, and then 4 times 2 to get 8. I don't think that 2 cubed is automatically 8.
So Immanuel Kant asked how are synthetic a priori answers possible, and that's just what you're back to.
No, they've asked something better than my question. What do you mean you don't believe that 2 cubed is automatically 8? Hold on. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8.
They provided a great example. Hero provided a good example, which was if you calculate angular momentum, the fact that you have your arms out and you're spinning, and then you pull your arms in, and the angular momentum is the same. There's different speeds to the spin, and so though something might be the same number, it doesn't mean it is the same inherently.
Well, 2 cubed in which system?
I hate cubed numbers. They don't exist to me. I am one of those people that cubed things just don't exist. Every time that it's cubed, it is underlying 2 steps before you can get there.
How do you make your drinks cold?
Uses ice rectangles, not cubes, okay? I hate cubes.
Yeah, I use a sphere, and in that case, I don't use a cubed in it, I change it to polar coordinates.
You chi-square your drink?
Chi?
Good name for a drink, chi-square. The official nerd of drinks. Or drink of nerds.
This is where memory is funny because, I could have answered any question about stats he would have thrown my way in the fall, right before I took my licensing exam. And I'm trying to remember, so chi is not about nominal, is it about nominal statistic, nominal?
It's about,
chi-squared.
what's the word? It's about, significance.
Yeah, it is about significance, but I'm trying to think if there's a special kind of significance. This is super nerdy, but it's super fun to try to remember. You can explain this. You're the professor.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm actually not very up on statistics. The only reason I know chi-squared is because I was in a math class a couple weeks ago, and they were doing the end end of the year, they were doing chi-square stuff. And I was like, I've actually never taken a stats class. All the stats I know is from chemistry and physics. Yeah, I just recently became familiar with chi-square, so I'm not even that familiar. But I know that that's the kind of thing, this is what statistics is for, right? To aggregate and analyze things. So yeah, it also dawned on me that what an important concept, like how to determine significance. Like I've been thinking about this whole, this whole story recently about the missing scientists. Kind of cracks me up. I mean, it's sad. It's like a numerical kind of. There's some sort of numeracy in our society, right? Like people can't wrap their heads around events and deciding whether something is just plain the kind of thing that happens every day or some kind of crazy conspiracy. Knowing more about things like chi-square testing seems like it would be valuable, both to the individual and to society.
I just discovered there's no emoji for chi-squared, which should be very simple because it's just like a really big kind of squiggly X with a 2 in the upper right-hand quadrant. Makes it the chi-square. And this is the one, it's used, the statistical hypothesis using the analysis of contingency tables when sample sizes are large. In simpler terms, the test is primarily used to examine whether two categorical variables, 2 dimensions of the contingency table, are independent in influencing the test statistic. So this was something weird that we had to do with our studying for the license, was you had to remember all these weird examples and exceptions for when you use what test for what purpose in research. And I recall that this one had something to do with, and then whether they applied it dependent, independent variables, combinations thereof, and what level of the hypothesis, and oh my gosh, I really have to review this stuff lest I forget it.
I like the concept of expected values. What do you expect before you decide whether what happened is weird?
James, my alternative advice to you, which you didn't ask for, is don't worry about reviewing it. The parts that you need to know will stay with you forever, and the rest of it you're never going to need. I studied graduate statistics 40 years ago and passed the qualifying statistics test, and I remember just enough so that I can get by in the kind of stuff that I read. That's all I really need. You're not going to need more.
Well, okay, let me ask you something then. So do you value the pre-existing data set that you were cooked with when formulating new ideas? And what's your cutoff date for your...
If you have a pre-existing data set, do you do an ICE table with it, an initial change and an end?
No, what I do for Jordan is I add a function call to basically be able to use Google or one of the other search engines to bring his data set up to date in real.
I put a cheat sheet from MIT in the chat.
What I meant by that is, don't you think?
So there are different gifts that are given out from the spirit for like kind of.
Brothers, and it sort of is the interpersonal dynamics of their very tumultuous relationship over the course of 40 years, where the timeline goes back and forth.
Yeah, I have seen the promotions for it, yeah.
Baby Ranger was really good. I'll cut that out. I'm gonna put it excited.
It has
really love Baby Ranger.
It has a similar quality in the sense that, like, it's about the very subtle nuances of people's personality deficiencies, and you're sort of enamored with seeing this intimate view into their world, even though they're totally fictional characters in this point, and semi-fictional characters in the last one. A very big game.
I like it better as somebody who is not a big fantasy fan, but I ended up watching Game of Thrones with my girlfriend, and now I'm watching The House of the Dragon. Can I tell you what I like about the House of the Dragon? Is that all of the people's names kind of, I mean, this was true in Game of Thrones too, but I liked that all of their names were the same. There's like Valerian and Galarian, and Valeris and Daenerys and Garrus and Varys, and there's others. I could go on, but that's what I think is my favorite part. I'm always like, wait, is this Aemon or Gaiman or Daemon? Is this Haemon or Daemon? Which Aemon is Gaiman?
I really thought I heard every possible take on that show.
Well, you're welcome.
You know what took me out of the show? I feel like, and I have this critique of later seasons of Game of Thrones, where my suspension of disbelief ended really, really quickly. Like when they were still trying to negotiate a peace after the war had already started and after people had died, I just thought it was so unrealistic and so kind of like obviously political because we know why they're saying this, that it turned me off.
I don't know. I don't share that view.
Wait, who was making the peace? Aemon and Gaiman? With their, what's her name? Rhaenyra or Daenerys?
It was the
Rhaenyra.
blonde and the brown-haired girl. They kept trying to make peace after the war had already
Alice,
started
it would be
and all that.
Rhaenyra and Alicent. Which Rhaenyra is not to be confused with Rhaenys.
Yes, that's
And not to be confused with Daenerys, who is in the other show.
Well, no one would ever confuse Daenerys Targaryen, Mother of Dragons.
With Rhaenyra Targaryen? You don't think I could confuse Daenerys with Rhaenyra? Daenerys and Rhaenyra.
No, honestly, I don't think you could. No.
Well, you underestimate me.
Been watching Derisive Motherland. It's one of the writers is Graham Linehan, you know, Father Ted and all that. It's pretty funny.
I don't know that either of those shows. What's the one you're watching about?
It's about, you know, moms and, you know, it's a British show. You never heard, you've probably seen something he's written a lot of British comedies. He's very active on X regarding transgender stuff. And, yeah, he's written a lot of funny.
Oh, okay. And if you watch Half Man, actually, I watch every show with the subtitles on, but you definitely need to have the subtitles on because it takes place in Ireland and Scotland, so.
Yeah. I'll probably start that today. I'm just finishing a drama series. I don't remember, Family Next Door or something. It's just drama stuff.
Yeah, I think there's only 6 episodes total of the show. It's a limited mini series on purpose. And I somehow watched 5 of them last night. I would have finished it all if the 6th one was available, but I think it comes out tomorrow.
I recently finished watching BoJack Horseman for the 6th time, or maybe it was the 5th.
Oh. I didn't know it was a good rewatch. I certainly liked it, but I only watched it the one time through.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, if you didn't like it, that's one thing. Watched it, then I would recommend that you rewatch it, because one of the things that you notice on the rewatching is more of the funny animal jokes in the background. And that's one of my favorite parts. For example, like a bird looks up in a rainstorm and then he drowns and falls over on the ground.
Okay.
Or other things like that. Like he goes, you know, they go to the underwater episode and there's a lot of fish jokes.
Hello?
I think I'm
Hello?
The Dragon. It's been so
Hello?
long. I forgot so much that happened. So catch up again.
I've for sure watched it at least twice. The seasons that are out, so I don't know that I need to. I'll probably just. I mean, there'll be season recaps like right before it starts, and like you can always do. But I mean, that's a watch for sure. I'm not a big rewatcher usually, although I did watch Game of Thrones 3 times through.
I just watched it, yeah, second time through, I don't know, maybe last year, but, oh, yeah, it was still great. Loved it.
Trash bag, I have to ask you, although I may judge you. Are you a brony?
A brony?
Okay, you don't know what that is. Never mind then. You're not.
Is that like a My Little Pony?
It's like men, like adult
I
men
think I know what it is.
who are into My Little Pony, and they claim it's not for sexual reasons, but it is.
I'm not offended, and in fact, I may even be flattered that you thought that I was a brony.
Oh, okay.
But no, I'm fairly normal. I mean, I'm weird in my own ways, but no, I'm not.
The only reason I asked is because you were very into the anthropomorphic style jokes.
Actually, they're called persons of pedophile interest.
I just think it's clever. I think that it's funny. I think that BoJack Horseman is such a powerful show.
Oh, it is. No, it is.
They've said many times, like, if it was a live-action TV show, it would never be able to be made because it would be too depressing. It's just straight depressing. I mean, it's a little inspiring. Maybe, like, look at yourself and don't be like the shitty characters in the show, I guess. But, like, It's Always Sunny is about bad people, but it's funny. The joke is that they're bad people. It's funny.
I do love
Amy.
Amy.
A child.
I do love Amy Sedaris a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that show, I mean, I cry. Many episodes, I am crying. And it's on the rewatch. I mean, when he leaves his mother in the nursing home, it's like, too much. When the final episode, I don't know if you remember the final episode when he's sitting on the roof with Diane, it's like, holy fuck. She says, I'm about to cry now. I don't want to cry now, but she says, sometimes life's a bitch and then you keep living. It's like, holy fuck, man. You know?
Did you ever watch another Amy Sedaris show much earlier, Strangers with Candy? I really want at least one person on Clubhouse to take this recommendation and watch it.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. I'll take your recommendation. I'll check it out.
She's like, you have to watch at least like 2 episodes to get into it. The pilot I think was a little rough. So don't just watch the first and judge it. Watch at least 2, but they're short episodes. So, sitcom like 22-minute episodes or something. And but like her character in that show, like I could bowl over and cry laughing.
I'll check it out. I like that in BoJack Horseman, Amy Sedaris' mother is played by her brother David Sedaris. I think that is a very funny casting job.
David, I think he's a semi-interesting writer. I read one of his books. I don't remember which one, but I don't know about him. He kind of rubs me the right a little bit.
They talk about him on This American Life sometimes, right? He's like in the same category as Birbiglia.
I haven't listened to that in a long time. This American Life, is that still good?
I used to be all about it, but then my politics changed, and it sounded kind of dumb to me, and I thought, fuck you, and I turned it off.
I'll be back.
the threats to their country are in the neighboring country, so he feels he has to attack them. Kind of like what Hitler did. No, it's quite clear that Israel is constantly under attack, and I think they have the absolute right to defend themselves. I stand behind that statement.
What statement do you say about it?
I think that Israel has the right to defend itself.
Yeah, everyone does.
There are a lot of people that think they're committing a genocide.
I think everyone has the right to defend themselves.
Sometimes
I don't know
it's
if
hard
everyone
to
has
know how far is defending yourself. When are you going on the offensive? That can be a hard thing to see clear.
I think when you get to killing thousands and thousands of children, I think that might be a line, possibly.
It's a possibility, I'll grant you that. But I don't think it's as clear as a certain number of children died. Like, are you opposed to the U.S. dropping the nuclear bombs on Japan? Do you think that was a bad thing to do, immoral? British?
I think in the situation, based on the way that it was laid out, it was the better choice. But then that would assume that the forward momentum path that was presented and mapped out was the only forward momentum path, and I don't know that.
Yeah, I struggled with that one. I think I've arrived at the conclusion. I understand why they did it, and I don't necessarily think it was some evil plot. I might not totally agree with the choice, but I think it probably did end up saving a lot of lives compared to a land invasion.
If a land invasion was the only option, right? By the way, we decided, this never gets brought up, the Americans decided to nuke Hiroshima. The Japanese decided to nuke Nagasaki. Japanese leadership did, because they refused to relent after Hiroshima. That one's on them. Nagasaki is on them.
Yeah,
not on us.
That's fair. Although I don't know that they were truly aware of the devastation, were they? Was there...
Yeah, they heard all the reports.
Okay.
They knew what had happened. It was such a mind fuck to the world what had just occurred that I don't know that they totally believed it. But they should have believed it. We just wiped a whole city off the map with one bomb, you know?
Yeah.
Now, we always intended to drop two. Always. But they had the ability to stop us after one.
Well, the thing is, you had to be able to prove that you could repeat it too, right? It wasn't a fluke.
I would say broadly, like, it's not even the right category to be like, was Nagasaki and Hiroshima uniquely evil? I think the targeting of civilian populations during World War II broadly was uniquely evil. You know, like, it's something that should not have happened. And by the way, it's a bad calculus too, because it's basically saying that, like, you can sap the energy of a people to continue fighting by bombing them relentlessly, and we saw that the opposite occurred. It galvanized everyone who got bombed.
Also, the nukes were not the worst bombings. Like the fire bombings of
those are bad.
Tokyo and Dresden were just as bad, if not worse.
Dresden is probably the worst war crime of the entire war. More so, Hiroshima is not even a war crime. The only reason Hiroshima is analogous to Israel is because one side, with overwhelming force, inflicting it on a side that's inferior in terms of force projection. Right?
Yep.
But in both instances, the inferior side began the fight. it's kind of like if we're out in the world, we're like leaving the restaurant, and we go out on the street, and a dude that weighs $130 and he's 5'2" punches a guy that looks like Brock Lesnar in the face, okay? And then Brock Lesnar decides to fucking just pile drive this dude into oblivion. You know, just fucking hammer fist to the face. The dude's unconscious, and he's still wailing on him till certain death. Are we okay with that outcome? In one point of view, it's morally justified, and in the other point of view, it's like those with overwhelming strength must hold back their strength. But that's only a Christian ethic. The Jews don't believe in that.
They certainly have a different barometer for morality.
By the way, the other thing too is like the Jews believe in genocide and want genocide. And it's a culturally held, belief in all of Israel. It's not a niche thing that they should genocide the Arabs.
I want YouTube to know that this is for news documentation, reporting purposes. This is not attacking a minority group or protected group. This is I'm a journalist and a candidate for politics, documenting online hate speech.
Dave just apparently got told that his thoughts are or implied to be unacceptable for having those opinions, and then
from earlier, yeah. I was in the room
which is
for
quite
some
entertaining
of it.
being around Americans that thoughts are unacceptable. That's good.
Well, I think Zach was just mocking Dave, more so.
I think so too.
Zach was trolling him hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Zach trolls on any topic when he comes in the morning. He has said that this is practice for him. As an attorney, he's going to practice any side, any topic.
Welcome to Bitcoin Utopia. The least utopian vision of society ever created. A group of horrific morons who gather every single morning to waste their time.
What is the purpose of all? What do you get at the end of these inquiries?
Absolutely
Understanding
nothing.
what's happening.
Better understanding of the world, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like we're going down a similar path right now, so I think it's important to realize,
Understanding of what?
number one, the way propaganda affects people. Number two, the reasons people will react the way they did in the past.
I think there's better.
I was going to France with a friend. I already had my passport. She didn't.
I like to know,
I don't know
for
why
me personally, the reason
we
I'm
waited,
always
she
inquisitive
waited,
about
but
everything is because
wound up going like
I like to know
the week before.
the way things actually are.
It's circular.
Because
It's something that makes them
that
feel
helps me make
It's like, and to me, it's also related
my
to
mind about what I'm
just,
going to do.
These guys, they invented
How's it
plugs they got.
based on the reality of the
Understand these
situation.
concepts have a wider applicability than just in the
I think
philosophy and religion. Like Narcissist, hold on. You understand that the concept of grounding has a lot more, like a lot wider applicability than just Christian apologists trying to argue for God, right?
And let's say people.
All right, we trying to, yeah, we got you. But let's try to stick with what's happening right now. I have some other news. It's a little bit off topic, but still, this is what's happening. So
confusing to me. It's like, okay, you are not gonna spend enough of your lifetime.
You need
performing being inquisitive about.
Well, here's let me give you
something useful at all.
Let me give you an example of something.
What are you gonna get out of all this?
Let me give you an example of something
This topic
that is hard to come to. in a modern context is like, why does Israel exist?
Because there are these things
This has
called
the answer, but why does it
Jews,
exist?
aka Zionists that recreate. Go Theodore Herzl, brother!
The world wanted it to get rid of them.
Yeah, that's right. It's Israel exists as an answer, or the answer to the Jewish question. The Jewish question being that European societies and Western societies, well, the reason that nobody wanted them is because of what?
Well, that's a different question.
See what I mean? You have to start, like, you have to go down this whole rabbit hole. But it's like, okay, Israel exists as an answer to the Jewish question. Yes?
I think them having their own country is appropriate.
I think so too. In fact, I think, by the way, I also think that if you don't have your own country and you don't have a nuclear warhead, that you are on the chopping block for extermination, which is why I believe there should be entirely